When you're tripping on your way to camp, between sites, you're on the move. You don't really have time to sit and cast, and if you do, it really slows you down. The technique is trolling. In case you didn't know, trolling means pulling a long line with a lure behind your boat, hoping that you'll pass over a fish and it'll come and eat your lure. Oh no, you got me. Now you might be thinking to yourself, oh, trolling, it's boring. I've been there, done that, and I don't like it. Well, here's the thing. The reason why this matters is that if you like catching fish, it will catch you more fish on trips. And if you don't want to hear about how to do that, then leave. I'm going to talk to you today about what I use, how I do it, and why you should consider doing it yourself. Let's talk about baits first. I primarily use crankbaits. When you're choosing a crankbait, I would say the most important thing is probably how deep it dives. They all dive different depths. Normally we'll say on the package, how dive it go, or how deep it dives. Something to consider when you're using crankbaits or trolling any baits is how much line you're letting out. Generally, the more line you have out, the deeper it goes. When I'm choosing colors for my baits, I normally go with whites, blacks, browns, greens, natural colors mostly. I'll throw a fire tiger in there every once in a while when I want to get nasty. Some of the cranks I like to use are, well, the one I use the most is Flicker Minnow by Berkeley? Another important strategy to consider is knowing the depth before you go on trip. There are many resources that you can use, and actually Ben did a video on that a while back, but we'll link that up here as well. There's some maps on there that will give you information about a lake and sometimes even the fish that are in the lake. So check that video out. Another bait that I have had success with while trolling is a spinnerbait. Primarily for shallow water. It's very good for that, especially if there's weeds around. But one important thing to remember is that spinnerbaits sink when you stop, so unless you're moving, that spinnerbait is just going to drop. Crankbaits don't do that. That's one of the nice things about them. If you have to stop for whatever reason, pops up to the surface. I've been using something called bottom bouncers, which I'm going to get to more later in this video, but one of the baits I like to use with those bottom bouncers are spoons. They are heavier, so they help that rig get down when you're fishing deeper. They don't tend to dive when you're pulling it behind a bottom bouncer. You can troll a spoon the same way you would a spinnerbait along weed edges in shallower areas. You just want to keep them out of the weeds, obviously. You're just pulling a treble hook behind you. So, by the way, my name is Adam, and I am a paddlehead. There are some things that will make this easier for you, but it's not all necessary. The biggest improvement to trolling for me has been rod holders. I started with some cheap ones that I grabbed, and I've now upgraded to something that's more versatile and heavy duty. My favorite right now is the rod holder with a clamp because Ben and I are often renting canoes and we need to move it between boats. It just makes it super easy. But if you own a boat, gear tracks is something. There's other permanent options as well where you can actually screw and bolt them onto your boat, so that's something else to consider. But the rod holder has made a massive difference for me. So I talked about bottom bouncers. This is a technique I just recently started using. My buddy Jake, who you might know, Canadian Shield Man. This is something that he uses quite often for walleye, and he's been showing me kind of how to do it from a canoe. I like it because you can fish deep with like spoons or even spinnerbaits. You can get them real deep. Inline spinners as well, that's another bait that works really well and you can put on a bottom bouncer. If you don't know what a bottom bouncer is, it's essentially a weight on a rod and it gets your line more vertical in the water column, and then you tie your lure onto the back of it and it just kind of trails behind the bottom bouncer. One thing about a bottom bouncer is to troll out of a canoe, I've found at least 3 ounces is necessary. 4 would be even better. The heavier the weight, the faster you can paddle. Best for like sandy bottoms, flat bottoms, some rocks and boulders it can go over, but if you get into bigger ones, you can get snagged up with that. It's great because it's an angled wire, so it usually will come over a lot of structure. If you know the bottom is relatively flat, it's a good spot to use a bottom bouncer. One thing that's really helped me with those bottom bouncers is instead of casting it out like I would do with a crankbait, put your rod out, start paddling, then open up your bail, let the line out, and then close your bail. That way the bottom bouncer doesn't have a chance to drop to the bottom and your lure gets snagged up. I usually bring a fish finder on my trip. It's very small, so it's easy to bring on trips for me, but that has been a very helpful tool while trolling because you can get an exact readout of the depth. So if you have access to a fish finder that you would bring on a trip, it will make a difference. I'd also just like to mention quickly that I got this idea or the inspiration to troll more on trips from John at Lost Lakes. I love his content, and he did a video about this, and it's helped me, so I'm hoping that you get the same from that. One other little tip is quite often on a trip, you'll be with somebody else in a tandem canoe. If you're both trolling, obviously you want to troll off opposite sides of the boat. But you have to be mindful of your lines crossing, especially on turns. So not ideal if you're on a small lake paddling small water. Bigger lakes are better. But just be mindful. When you're making a turn, make a wide turn. If you can't make a wide turn, bring at least one of the lines in so they don't cross. A little while ago, at the beginning of the season, I did a full video on my fishing canoe, and it included some of the equipment that I'm talking about in this video. So if you are interested in seeing that and what I use and how I use it, check out the video. It's going to be linked right there. The important thing I want you to take away from this is that since I started using this technique, I have not been skunked on a trip ever again, and hopefully that remains to be the case. So thank you for watching. If you like this video, please hit subscribe, like, comment, tell us what you like to do on trips and how you catch fish, because I could use some more help. Thanks for watching. Sayonara, sucker.
Oh, are you tired? Oh, you're so tired.
No, I'm not.
You're so tired.
No, I'm not. I'm working hard, and I can do this. How does that look?
It looks okay. I don't know about you though.